So my name is Nate Becker. I'm interviewing Matthew Vandenberg right now.
Yeah.
Uh, if you would like to give a little backstory of yourself.
Yeah. My name's Matthew Vandenberg. I'm the assistant coach and director of player development for the Penticton V's and the BCHL, moving into the Western Hockey League as of 2025, or fall of 2025. I've been coaching now for 12 years and I've coached all around North America, both at the amateur and the college and now the junior level. And I've had a number of business opportunities in the sports industry as well. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you were actually one of my old coaches back in, do you remember what year? Uh,
That was 2014, 2014, I think, 15, right around there,
like,
right at the very beginning of my coaching career.
but I thought you were a great person to speak to because of our past experiences and how we've kept in touch and everything.
Yeah.
But so initially sparked your interest in coaching hockey.
I initially had zero interest in coaching hockey, if I'm being honest. I was doing it just for more ice time, for my own player. Like say I wanted to go back and play competitively again myself. And when I was coaching, like I was volunteering my first year in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Um, like by the end of the year, I kind of had an inkling that I enjoyed just helping people. And Sean Wilby Ray, who was the guy I was coaching with, he was a former college hockey player himself. Because he kind of encouraged me I could feel like you kind of have a good pulse for the players and you're good at communicating. Like, why don't you give this coaching thing a shot? And so like, I thought about it for about a week after he talked to me about that. And then the following year, I coached you. And um, like I wouldn't trade it for anything. We had this conversation the other day with our players. They kind of went around the locker room as to why we do what we do. And um, like I'm very competitive. I enjoy winning. I enjoy the process of developing guys and helping them grow. But I think at the end of the day, I just enjoy serving people and helping people. And I feel like coaching is just an easy way to do it. So
That's That's great, honestly. It's funny to me that I had the same outlook as of right now, like thinking about coaching and reffing and all that stuff. And I'm like, I never could see myself as doing that. But now that I've had my injuries and everything I've gone through, I'm like, I think I could see myself doing that more often than I would like
yeah.
being actively out there on the ice playing.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy way to stay involved in the sport competitively. And like, I have a lot of friends that envy what I do, and they think it's really awesome to do what I do. And like, I warn a lot of people that want to come into this. Like, it's awesome. Like, games are awesome. Being in like sellout or in arenas and in high stakes environments is great. But it's there's no breaks. It's 365. And usually if you're taking a day off for a vacation, you're falling behind in some way, shape, or form. Um, and so like I don't get days off. I usually work every day for like during the week, and then Sundays I'm usually working for 4 to 5, 6 hours a day. And like it's a grind. It's a lot of work. And so like I think it's a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but you do have to, it has its own inherent sacrifices that like if I'm trading a quote unquote desk job, uh, I'm inheriting the workload that goes with it. Because everybody thinks like coaching at this level is just to show up and you do a run of practice and do a video session maybe, and you call it a day and you're done in 3 hours. But like I get to the rink, I'm here usually between 5:30 and 6, and like I get my own workout in, and then uh, our players show up around 9. We practice and do skills and video sessions from about 9 to 4 every day, and then uh, I'll do another workout myself, and then I'll do more work from like 6 to 11, 6 to 12, because I'm also working on my doctorate degree and between all that as well. So like there's just a lot of time that goes into this that people don't understand. So.
Sure. Uh, so could you tell me a little bit about your doctorate degree? What made you decide to follow that path?
Um, so like as you know, like when I was coaching you, I was just starting my master's in sports business, and that was at Northeastern. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I initially thought maybe I wanted to be an athletic director, um, and so on the business side of things, I felt having a master's degree would be beneficial. So I did my master's at Northeastern in sports business, and then uh, kind of through that process, I still kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was still continuing to coach. I moved to Wisconsin, um, and started my MBA at Marquette University there in Milwaukee. So I got my MBA from there. Still, like I was so far into coaching, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna see how far I can take it. Um, and so I was like, my MBA program finished, and I was I was still maybe thinking I wanted to be an athletic director. And if you look at a lot of athletic directors in the modern NCAA, a lot of them have their doctorate degrees. And so getting that seemed like it was important. And so the program I found is actually through Grand Canyon University. It's in Scottsdale,
Mm.
Arizona. It's only one of two in the country. It's called a Doctoral of Business Administration. So it's a DBA. So it's just a more advanced version of an MBA, but it's more geared towards leadership and organization strategy and stuff like that. But it's kind of given me an opportunity to continue to develop my academic prowess and continue to pursue getting the last quote unquote degree. But um, I think what's nice about that is there aren't very many people that have their masters that coach, let alone their doctorate. So it's just one more thing that distinguishes me, just because I didn't have an illustrious playing career. So the having that resume helps. So,
For sure.
but no, it's exciting. I've been in college almost two-thirds of your life. So
It's pretty crazy.
so yeah, it's a little absurd, but I'm this far. I might as well just finish it, right? So
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go to like your roles, responsibilities, and your typical day.
yeah.
So what's your primary responsibilities as of right now?
Um, so as of right now, I work with all of our forwards and all of our D. After every weekend, I have individual film that I do from all the games from that weekend, and then I'll meet with the forwards as a whole and go over film. I'll meet with the D as a whole, go over film. Then I also run our power play. So like I'll have clips for that as well. It's a lot of video coaching at this level. And then like when I'm not doing that, I'm on the ice for practice, usually an hour and a half every day. And then in between there, there's a couple player development sessions. So we usually have one to two, maybe three, depending on the time of the year. And those are 30 minutes to an hour each. So I'm on the ice roughly anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours a day. And then the rest is either doing meetings with players or doing video preparation for the team that we're playing. Because I'm in charge of a lot of our pre-scouts as well, so breaking down their structure, their penalty kill, their power play, their tendencies, stuff like that. And then the other part of it, and kind of what my master's degree at Northeastern was really beneficial at is a part of that degree was in high performance sports psychology, and so usually, just given my personality, I'm not an authoritarian leader by any means. I'm more of a interpersonal coach, and so whenever somebody has a problem or needs somebody to talk to or vent to, I'm usually the guy.
Mm.
Um, and it doesn't matter where they're from. If they're from Canada, the U.S., if they're from Sweden, Switzerland, if you got a problem, they're coming to talk to Vandy usually. So, um, and a lot of that just comes down to like the thing about sports is that if you want to be good at leadership, you have to be good at developing and maintaining and growing relationships, and establishing that trust. Because if it's just service level, eventually it won't be strong enough to navigate the highs and the lows of a season. But like if you put in the work, like I make it a point to take a couple different guys out to dinner every week just so that I can see how they're doing and get to know them more and build up that relationship just that much more. And um, I think just like everything else, it's what you put into it is what you're gonna get out of it. And like I still stay in touch with guys. I mean, there's guys that are playing that played here last year that are playing in the NCAA tournament right now that I'm staying in touch with and giving them tips and advice and how to deal with the pressure of that platform. And it's really been a great experience for me because like our head coach here is the president of the organization as well, and he's been so busy with our transition into the Western League that he's really just kind of give me full reins in terms of our current team day to day, and so it's just helped me sharpen my skills that much more as a coach. And um, the other flip side of all this is when you get to sports at this level, you have to be able to build relationships with college coaches because they want your players. And then every player on our level has an agent, and so you have to be able to develop the agent relationships as well. And um, a lot of the agents are pretty all about themselves and their clients. So you got to be able to develop those authentic relationships with those guys, and that involves like going out to bars. And yeah, I'm not a bar guy, but if I have to, or go out to dinner with a guy, just because I need to continue developing that relationship, I will. And like when I first got into coaching, that wasn't necessarily anything I did, and I learned when I got to college that you need to have those relationships because that's A, where your players come from, but B, those are the guys that kind of help you keep the supply chain, if you want to think about it that way, of players for your teams to come.
For sure.
And so, like, I think like, I spend most of my day with our guys, and then if there's an agent or a college guy in town, I usually end up catching up with them at some point. So, I'm on the phone a lot. It literally is basically working all day. And you can, and like the flip side, you can work until your heart's desire, but if you're not doing it intelligently, it's not going to produce the results. And I'm very, very fortunate to have spent the 2 years I did at Maine under Ben Barr there. He kind of showed me what it means to work smart and hard, not just hard. And so had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be able to do what I do every day. It's just it takes a lot out of you. And if you're doing it the right way, you're going to get the results that you want. But if you're just working for the sake of working, you're going to spin your tires and not get anywhere. So,
Yep. 100%. Um, how does your role change in the off season?
um, I think in the off season, like it's a couple of different parts. You're breaking down the previous season, see like because our ultimate goal is like you always want to win your last game, which
Mm,
is incredibly hard to do. Um, and so like for us last year, we won our conference and then we lost in game six, and that was a really crappy feeling because we beat the toughest team in our league, and then we fell short against a team that we shouldn't have, and we did on our home ice here, and that was the worst part. So um, like it's you're breaking down that to see what was good, what was bad, and what we can build on. And then you're networking with other coaches and trying to pick their brain and see how they're either implementing systems, how they're running practices, how they're doing player development sessions. And so you're trying to grow as a coach that way, and build relationships that way. And then like for me personally, I train a lot of players in the off season as well. So I'm probably on the ice for 2 to 3 hours a day in the summer, Monday through Thursday, and in the gym Monday through Friday, probably 2 to 4 hours a day. Um, just because I really I like that part of it because I train myself, but I've always kind of enjoyed the off ice part of it. But as you know,
mm,
but the part I like about it is that it gives you a different perspective as a coach when you know what your athletes are going through, as opposed to if you just coach and nothing else, like you don't really understand what all goes into your player's ability. Whereas if you're taking charge of your player's development and going about the process of helping them play better and train better, you're going to understand why they're performing the way they are a lot better.
mm,
And so, like, I think that's kind of like the change, if you want to think about it in terms of like a traditional coach to the more modern coach like myself is I think a lot of modern coaches are more like the younger guys are more player development based and are more interpersonable. And I think that's just because we're adjusting to the new generations coming up, but we also feel like that's a better way to do it than just being a guy that knows X's and O's and that's it. And so I would say that's how I spend a good chunk of my off season. I usually try every day to do something non-hockey related, even if it's just go for a hike or a walk I picked up fishing last summer, so that was something new.
Yeah.
But you try to just change gears, so you're not necessarily thinking of like, okay, we're going to do this at practice, or we're going to do this against this team. It's more of a time where you can learn and grow and really expand your knowledge. But and then after all that, the last bit is you spend a lot of time going to camps, whether it's like USA Hockey development camps or Minnesota or North Dakota player development camps, because you're scouting. You're getting ready for that next group of players, and you're also getting your face out there. A lot of I'd say probably three-fourths of the time I'm showing up at the rink, I'm there for a reason to watch a handful of players or watch a couple teams, but the other 25% I'm just there to make my presence seen. And a lot of it comes down to people recognizing you, knowing your brand, and by how you carry yourself, you kind of establish your identity as a coach, but also as an extension of the organization. And so I would say a lot of the people that didn't know about Penticton in the States before I got here know about it now. Because I personally didn't know about Penticton until
Mhm.
I started coaching at Maine because we had a couple players that had played here before. Um, but it's you're constantly evolving, you're constantly growing, and it's you're just shifting gears. It's not like it shuts off. You're just shifting gears.
Yeah. Um, which aspects do you find most challenging or least enjoyable? And then also, what do you find the most rewarding?
Um, I think most challenging is probably helping players stand on their own 2 feet. Um, because when they get here, they're at that age where some of them are still in high school, others are right on the edge of going into college, and a lot of them have a lot of people in the ears, whether it's agents, advisors, this coach, this trainer. Um, like I would say most guys in our team have probably an agent, a skating coach, and a skills coach. That so at a minimum they have three people in there.
Wow.
Um, some guys have nutritionists and sports psychs. Their dads used to play. So I mean, it's endless the amount of possible ears or voices that are in their ear. And so when they get here, it's kind of like not that you need to sever those ties by
Mhm.
any means, but it's understanding that everybody can give you the best advice in the world, but if you don't do it for yourself, it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's helping them understand you got to own your own development. You got to understand how to manage your time and do what's best for you. Some guys they need to be here 4 or 5 hours a day. Some guys they need to come here, do the work that's required and no more because that's all their body can handle. And so understanding how they can do that, and it's hard because mom and dad want to be a part of it. Like what's funny for me is the most involved parents are the ones that had the least experience with hockey. Like for me, like the guys that have kids that were NHL all-stars, like guys that played 1,000+ games in the NHL, won Stanley Cups, like all those guys are usually the least involved people because they've been there and they've done that, and they basically tell their kids, "You're not going to ride my coattails. You're going to forge your own path."
Yeah.
And so, like, they give them the tools and resources they need, but they're like, "You're going to walk yourself through that door. I'm not pushing you through it." Um, and so I'd say that's probably the most challenging and difficult just because every player is different in that sense. But I would also say for me, that's a part of the reward for me as well, because like I take the time in my role being the director of player development, like you have to build a relationship with each guy to understand like what buttons do I push when, how do I drive him to achieve more? Okay, he's struggling. What levers do I push and pull? Or is he more of a kid that needs to be supported, or is he more of a kid that needs to kind of be pushed? And so like I would say developing those relationships and then watching them individually flourish like over the course of a season or two or three, or like for me personally, like most recently, the best success story that I had since I've been here, is a guy by the name of Francesco Delce. He's a freshman defenseman at UMass. And last year he came in, he was all-star, like really good defenseman, just didn't know how to play defense. So he drove me nuts. And so like throughout the course of the year, he'd be playing first pair, second pair, first pair, second pair. And then right around this time last year, right before playoffs, he was really struggling offensively. Um, and he's a high skill player, but really struggling offensively in his own head about whether or not he's going to get drafted, and then or go to school for that matter. And he was only playing 6, 7 minutes a night, which for those who don't know, a normal defenseman at our level, if you're a high end player, you play 18 to 25 minutes a night. So give you some context. And so we had a series of discussions. We grabbed dinner a couple times over a matter of 2 weeks, and he started playoffs last year on a hot streak and never really looked back. He ended up being our best defenseman. Kind of led our entire team in terms of productivity in playoffs last year, and went into UMass as a player that a lot of people knew but kind of thought was overrated. They thought he was going to be good but not great, and ended up being one of the top two freshmen in all college hockey this current year for all, not just defensemen but for all players. Um, and so like to see him go through that struggle and to see him go and crush it now is like that's the most rewarding thing.
No, that's so true. It's funny to me like hearing you talk about it now and having like a completely different outlook on like my past experiences and everything. And I wish I would have taken like some of the things you said back then more seriously because I just I look back and I'm like, well, if I would have done that, if I would have done that, but you can't really change it. I know, but
It's hard to listen in the moment.
it
It's
is.
the hardest thing to do, and that like I struggle with myself, but like because at the end of the day, more times than not, people just want to be successful, but they want to be successful because of the amount of time and energy people put into them. They want to make it feel like it's all worthwhile.
Yeah,
And like it's helping people understand that regardless, like your family, your circle still loves you, still cares about you. Like we want you to be successful for you. And like helping them understand that and then helping people to understand like buying into the process as opposed to the results.
yeah.
Um, and like we
That's
always talk about here, like results don't really matter at the end of the day if your process sucks.
mhm.
Um, because when you leave here, even if you get the results here, if your process sucks, you're going to go suck in college. If you manage to do well in college, you're going to suck in the NHL because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
And so, like the thing that we always talk about here is not riding the waves, meaning like if we win a game 7-2, okay, great. We got to show it up and do it again tomorrow. If we lose game 10-0, okay, what do we do wrong? Let's adjust. And all right, now we got to go again.
yeah,
So it's kind of like finding that middle where you're neutral on everything. And that's hockey's an emotional sport. We're emotional human beings. It's a pretty hard thing to do.
yeah. I'll go to the next little segment I have, is management and leadership. How would you describe your coaching philosophy?
Um,
I already went over it, but
no, no. I think like one word that would describe it all is servant. I know that's a pretty broad term, but it's being diligent about investing in relationships, and a lot of it comes down to um, not thinking of yourself as less as a leader or thinking like less of yourself or diminishing whatever you do.
yeah,
But it's thinking of others more. And every time you walk into an environment, whether you're in the business setting or if you're in the sports setting, like if you're a leader, like you have people that are looking for you for guidance, and everybody needs to be guided in a different way.
yeah,
And if you don't have those intentional relationships built, or if you're not being deliberate about how you're spending time building those relationships, you're not going to get the results that you want because we all have issues, we all have struggles. Um, and like it's being able to, for lack of better terms, handle your own shit as a leader and behind closed doors so that when you go and you're out there, you can serve and be fully present with whoever you're leading. Um, because they need you, even though they won't say it, they need you for guidance. And like as a coach, like you set the tone for your team. So if you're constantly on edge, or if you're constantly angry, or playing a victim mentality, your team's gonna adopt whatever mentality you approach. And so, like I think for us, what's cool about this organization specifically, and at Maine, I'm pretty blessed to have been where I've been. And like this organization was established in 1955. Like they've won hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. I can show you our rink here over my shoulder. If you can kind of see, we
yeah,
have banners that go all the way around our rink here. Um, That's we have 95 banners in total, going all the way back to 1955.
Wow.
Um, and so, but that's all because they believe in the organization, that we get great support from the community, but they all believe in the organization, and the organization in turn believes in them. And so it's getting our guys to understand, like, not only am I serving you, you guys are serving each other,
Yeah.
and helping on them all understand what that means. And so, like, I think, um, like, The Carpenter by John Gordon, like, I read that book of right when I was just starting to get into coaching. Like, that's probably one of my favorite leadership books because it
Yeah.
talks a lot about that servant mentality. But yeah, I would say that would be my leadership philosophy for sure.
Um, I forgot what I was gonna say. You mentioned something in there, but I'll probably remember at the end.
It's all good.
Um, so what are your strategies for effectively managing and motivating your players?
Um, Managing, I would
If you're not
say,
really managing, but
no, I think you are managing, to a degree. I think you have to be honest, like, even if it hurts, like, you're not in a leadership position to make people feel better about themselves.
yeah,
You like the When I was younger as a coach, I hated difficult conversations, or I hated telling people the truth if it wasn't positive, because, like, this person's gonna be mad at me, or they might not respond the right way, or, like, once you can drop that perception of you're in this to make people happy, as opposed to, like, you're in this to lead them to places they couldn't get on their own. And so, like, I think for managing people, it's being honest. Like, if a player for us is struggling, you pull them aside, you put in the extra work on the ice, you pull them aside on the video side of things and go over things. And in addition to that, you have the relationship that you were deliberate about setting up and understanding, okay, what's he going through? Okay, his grandmother just passed away. They're really tight. Like, how can I help him navigate that? Or his college coach hasn't talked to him in a month. He's really struggling. He's worried about going in. Like, okay, now I got to call a college. Oh no, Vandy, we're really happy with him. Like, tell him he's fine. He'll figure it out. So then it's providing that reassurance to that player. Like, every situation is different.
yeah,
Um, but I would say that's how I manage players. And then motivation. Um, I think motivation's a cheap word for coaching. I think if you look at a lot of coaches that are new or that are old school, not the like the guys that are actually investing in coaching, but like the guys that are just kind of surface level, they look for the rah-rah speech, or they look for the right quote, or the right, like, those guys said this about us, like, F them, like, this is what we're gonna do. Um, but motivation and emotions are cheap. Like, they are, because at the end of the day, they fade really quickly. But what drives people is being a part of something that's bigger than themselves, and really helping them understand that even though you might not have the points that you want right now, or if your individual success contributes to the team success, like, our team success means our organization is going to succeed, and your name's going to be on one of these banners hanging out here. Um, and like, Tom Izzo, like, I love studying coaching, but Tom Izzo, the basketball coach at Michigan State, is probably my favorite coach of all time. He has a really good saying, like, records and stats are meant to be broken, banners hang forever. And helping people understand that, like, that's a different level of motivation. That's more like understanding your role and something that's way bigger. So that gives them purpose.
true.
So I'm a big, how can I help them find a purpose guy, as opposed to motivation, because you're not going to remember what Vandy said in the third period of game 7. It's just, you're not. But you're going to look up and see one of these banners hanging there, like, all right, now I know what I'm doing.
So what everyone calls you now, Vandy.
Yeah, everybody. Well, I have about 2 dozen nicknames with some of the college coaches, but yeah, everybody
Yeah,
calls me Vandy. So
that's pretty funny. I
yeah.
remember what I was gonna say earlier. You were mentioning your players take on the same philosophy that you kind of say, and
Hmm.
playing on the junior canes for 2 years, I definitely think that like a lot of the players just didn't really know how to handle their emotions as much as they should have because of our coach back then. And
Yeah.
it's just funny, like in retrospective, like just thinking back on it, like only if it was a little different with like a little two different coaches, but both
Hmm.
coaches would go off on us or like go crazy on us and
Yep.
be super unlevel and then
Yep.
go have a bunch of beers afterwards and let loose. But that's the difference
If you're
in
not, no,
coaching.
yeah. Well, I'm. You don't know what you don't know, and I wouldn't have known any better. I was fortunate to coach with Ray Whitney.
Hmm.
Like he's in the Hall of Fame in Arizona. He kind of gave me a good example. Then, um, like by the stroke of God, I got to go to Maine for 2 years, and Ben Barr is probably the biggest mentor that I've ever had in my life. Him and Jim Montgomery, like um, they how they carry themselves is something I've never seen before, and um, it, I would say I carry myself a lot like them, just because like you don't ride the highs, you don't sink to the lows. But if you don't show people you care and you don't invest in them, they're not going to care in you at the end of the day. And then they're not going to care about the program at the end of the day or about each other. And so like the what's funny is that mindset of the team's going to embrace whatever the coach shows or how they carry themselves. It's so true. In our league specifically, I can go team by team and show you which teams are acting just like their head coach.
Yep.
And it's like it's no different in business. Like if you're not a very sympathetic leader, if you're just constantly hard on people, or if you're a poor communicator as leader, like your subordinates aren't going to be great communicators. Like the standard that you set, like what's funny about leadership is people don't understand. Like they're always watching you, like always, even on the bus. Like when like so I'm working on my doctorate degree, and like all the players sit in the back or in the middle and I'm in the front. Like they see me working. Like
Mhm.
I'm not watching movies, I'm not playing video games, like, and they'll make comments like, man, that's awesome, or they'll ask me what I'm working on, or like, wow, you must really love the school thing. Hey, I'm like, no, like I don't really, but I it's what's required. And so like they see if they see the leader doing what's uncomfortable but is necessary and then working hard and being committed to doing the inherent sacrifices that come with whatever goal that we've set for ourselves, like they'll do it too. So
Um, yeah, it's funny you say that with the working on the bus and all that stuff because uh as I said, playing on the junior canes and all that stuff, like the coaches I could tell were watching us and listening to us. Like they didn't have anything else to do. That was their main jobs. They like
yeah,
would kind of just here and then have something to do or something to watch, not very applied or whatever. And I'm
right.
not putting any of this on you or anything, but like the 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 coaching there was just so up and down. It was funny to me thinking back on it and like seeing it where it is right now. And now they're doing like an alumni event and everything. And I'm intrigued to see how many people actually go to that
Yeah.
because of the coaching and everything like that. And
And I just yeah, I would say it's leadership and coaching at the end of the day is like anything else. It's the people that are intentional about it and put in the work to grow and put themselves in environments where they're not the smartest.
yeah,
Like those are the people that go a long ways. Like I started, and you and I both know, I started coaching in Greensboro, North Carolina at the Greens, or what were we called? The Tri-City, what was our name?
you started as the Greensboro Stars and then we went to Triad Storm.
Triad Storm, that was it. And like I started there, and now I'm gonna coach in the Western League after having coached in BCHL and the NCAA at the highest level. Like I, I'm okay with being the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to be able to say I played in the AHL, and that's fine. And I'm not going to be able to say that I was an all-star player or I coached with this person yet. Um, but like, there's a lot of coaches that just don't, like I said earlier, they don't know what they don't know. So like, I don't fault them to a degree because they haven't necessarily been afforded the opportunities that I have. But like at the same time, people are like, "Oh wow, you're like, look where you're at. Like, it must be nice to have connections." And I'm like, you have no idea. Like, so my first year at Maine, I got that job off a last minute, like week long. Uh, so I was at player development camp with Jim Montgomery in St. Louis in 2021. Um, and he liked what I did so much. He asked what I wanted to do, and I like at that point I was about ready to quit coaching because it was just I was on my ninth year at AAA and I just had it, and I was burnt out. And like he really liked what I did and pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I'm like, I have no idea." And he's like, "Well, he's like, give me your resume. I like what you do. And I'll get back to you." That was on Wednesday. So he comes back Thursday morning. It's like, "Hey, I was on the hiring committee at Ben Bar. You got a phone call with him at 5." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, just make sure you're on the phone at 5." I was like, "Okay." Like, I'm not gonna get anything. And so I call Ben. He's like, "Yeah, our staff is full, but we're looking for a volunteer assistant." Like then we talked for about an hour. Shot me a text later that night. He's like, "Hey, I really liked what you had to say earlier. Are you able to get up here?" And this was Thursday night at like 10, and our camp went through Friday. And so like I've quick booked a no, so I jumped on a plane on Friday at like 11 out of St. Louis. I got to Boston at like 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I I rented a car and drove up to Maine. I got there at like 6, slept from like 6 to 11 at the hotel I got, had to be there at noon. Went and met Ben. I've never been to Maine before, and hung out with him and his wife and his kids all day. And um, like got to the end of the day, it was like 10:30, 11. I was at their house, and it's like, Vandy, I really like to think, I really think I'd like to have you around here. So, like if you want the job, like I can't pay anything, but it's yours if you want it. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I want the job. And so like this was at the 11th hour in summer. I was all set to go back and coach AAA in Arizona. And so um, when I took that job on like I flew out on Sunday, drive all the way back to Boston, flew out on Sunday, back to Milwaukee, packed up my stuff. I left Milwaukee on Wednesday, had to be in Maine on Friday, and started on that Sunday. And like my first year at Maine, I slept at the rink because like so I stayed at Benny's house. Like he gave me his guest house for that first year. But like he lived 40 minutes away, and he and I like we were there after games or during the season trying to fix our recruiting process and kind of like break down the old to put in the new um super late. And so I kid you not when I say I probably slept at the rink in my office probably like 80 times that first year.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And so like it's not glamorous at all. And if you want to make a lot of money, you don't get the good paychecks until you're in the NHL or you're a head coach or an associate head coach at the best college programs. And so like you need another reason why you do what you do. And then for me, it's serving people and it's to be as part of something that's bigger than yourself. And like somebody asked me the other day, or actually, yeah, we were talking about there's a coach at a pretty high level program that just lost his job and kind of behind the scenes turns out that his assistant stabbed him in the back and kind of helped him out the door. And somebody asked like like why don't why doesn't our head coach worry about that? And our head coach kind of looked over at me and I just said like when it's my time, whether it's in this program or somewhere else, it'll be my time. Like I don't need to like manipulate or connive or anything else to get my way to the top. When it's my time, it's gonna be my time. And that's like the timing of how everything has worked in my life ever since I kind of just focused on being where my feet are and being the best I could be there has everything's unfolded unbelievably for me. Like at Maine, like I took the job here because I was getting uh you can only have 3 assistants in college. And I had done my 2 years at Maine, and they were hiring a director of scouting. Um, and so, which means I didn't have a spot. And so my head coach and I spent basically all that spring and that summer, like interviewing and interviewing and interviewing. And I would get to the final round and I wouldn't get it. And um, like my the job I wanted the most was the national development program, and I got to the final round and the guy loved everything I had to say, but because I didn't have playing experience at the high level, he didn't give me the job. And so um, at the 11th hour, I got a call from Fred here, our president, and he's like, "Hey, like I got your resume. Like, you still interested in interviewing?" And at the time, I was down to a spot with the Chicago Steel in the USHL, or Omaha Lancers also in the USHL, and I was actually in the Steel office when Fred called me. And So I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I went through that interview process, and when I got the job offer, I was a little surprised because they don't usually hire Americans up here.
Yep.
Um, and so when I got that opportunity, I called my head coach at Maine. He's like, "Man, you need to take it. Like, you'd be stupid if you're not." So like I came up here. I had been to Whistler, British Columbia once, and never even heard of really Penticton. And after having been here for going on 2 years now, I went and traded for him. And it's been an awesome experience.
That's awesome. And it's funny because I haven't talked to you in so long. I had no idea about like all of that. Like,
Oh yeah.
didn't even know you were in St. Louis for a little while. Like,
Yeah, for the week, yeah, yeah, I was there at an agent camp, like sports agencies put on player development camps for their clients in the summer, and
mhm,
I was just there running with Jim Montgomery. He was an assistant at the time
mhm.
with the Blues, and then like he helped me get the job at Maine, and then he took over with the Bruins, and it couldn't have been any better timing. So,
Yeah,
um, like the thing about leadership and about coaching is like you need you need an ego, but you need more self-belief than anything else because ego gets in the way and confidence is tied to your emotions. And so, like, for me, every situation I've gone into, I've trusted myself with the ability that after everything I've been through, I can figure it out.
yeah, for
So, like, I think if you want to be a leader at any type of level, you need a lot of self-trust, that's for sure.
sure. Um, how has coaching and managing, or how has coaching junior athletes changed in recent years?
Um, I think the whole NIL circumstance with college has affected in terms of which colleges are getting which players. Then hockey specifically just had the CHL rule change, which for those who don't know, like Canadian players that played Major Junior, whether it's the Quebec Major Junior, the Ontario Major Junior, or the Western Hockey League now, weren't able to play in college, but now they are. I'd say that's changed the most. Um, Outside of that, they're still the same people, the same players. Like nothing's really changed. I would say, like for me, my age helps me because like I'm still considerably younger than a lot of the coaches that I coach with or against. Um, and I don't say that to toot my own horn. It's just I was very fortunate that I started coaching it when I did. Um, and I think a lot of people kind of stumble into it as a second career maybe and kind of just do it because they don't want to do anything else. Whereas like I know what I want to do and um, I think this is just a means to an end in terms of serving people, and I'm just very fortunate to have been given the opportunity at some pretty amazing places. So
How did COVID-19 affect your team management and coaching?
nothing, not a bit. I was coaching AAA still at the time, and so like I was writing workouts for guys to do at home. Like for me, I was still working on my MBA, so it really didn't change a whole lot.
That's kind of funny. It's like the one thing because it didn't change a whole lot for me either whenever I was in Raleigh because
Yeah,
the other than in 2019 when we were literally at our finals game, the last game of the season, and then they were like, "Yep, we're canceling everything."
yeah,
It was like literally we were the last league to get it. It was
okay.
so frustrating. But other
Oh,
than
I get it.
that was the only thing that really affected us because the following year it was all back to normal.
Right?
Yeah, like nothing ever happened.
No, yeah, oh yeah, it was a lot of nothing. So like for it changed some things hockey wise, but for the most part, everything's gone back to normal and things are continuing to evolve as they would. So I was fortunate to be where I was. So
For sure. How many years had you been coaching by the time COVID hit?
6 years.
6 years.
So
You were like 23 or so when you were coaching me.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So and then like I'm 32 now, so like I started coaching when I was 20. So going
Wow.
on 12 years here.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like an old
Did
man, but
you start college when you first got out of high school?
I did. I didn't play junior hockey at all, so I said like I wanted to be an actual doctor, and now I'm working on my doctorate degree in business and organizational leadership. So
Hey, you're still a
um,
doctor. People are
yeah, yeah,
confused, Dr. Vandy.
exactly.
Um, I'm just going down the list. I've got a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
Some of the questions, like I was going to ask about any specific growth from any players, and you already went over that. Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
it's all good.
Um, where do you see the future of coaching or sports management headed, especially at
Um, I think the business side is going to really evolve in terms of how people watch sports and how they consume entertainment. And you can spend hours talking about that.
Yeah,
Honestly, I think coaching is going to be like you still need to know X's and O's. You still need to know strategy. By the end of the day, the guys that are the best communicators and the best people, people for lack of better terms, are going to be the most successful. Just because like your generation, my generation, the generations coming up, we all need relationships,
yeah,
and like we're very much interdependent, and we're not independent, we're interdependent. And I think a lot of coaches that are kind of on their way out of coaching are really struggling with that. And I feel like the coaches that are kind of coming into coaching now are starting to understand like you need to have the relationship with an athlete where you can be hard on them in 1 second or in practice, and you get off the ice and you're joking with them 5 minutes later, or they come to you with something that's not even related to hockey, their girlfriend situation, their school situation, whatever it might be. Like it's developing that trusting relationship with every player, and I think a lot of the new coaches that are coming in understand that. So
yeah. Um, could you discuss how analytics or data has influenced your any of the strategies you've
not me personally. I would like we have like at Maine we had an internal stat sheet for every game,
Mhm.
and then we have one here as well. Uh but like I'm a big like stats are only as good as what you do with them type guy. And so like for me, I don't make it so finite where I'm looking at on a game by game basis. For
Yeah,
me, I'm looking at trends. So over a 5 to 10 game stretch or a 15 game stretch, just kind of see if things need to be tweaked or anything like that. But like that NHL level, like I know there's some coaches that still or that are starting to rely pretty heavily on data analytics on a daily basis to make like roster decisions and stuff like that. Um, but I still think the best leaders use it as a not a decision making tool, but a decision enabling tool. So like a tool that helps decisions. Um, and the guys that I know that are coming up in coaching that have kind of more of the educational background than I do, they understand what that data actually means.
yeah,
Like they don't need somebody to explain it to them or put it in layman's terms. Like they just understand what it means. So I think being able to use it in addition to your intuition is really critical.
yeah. And having a good sense of self.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
what you said. Um, is there any common misconceptions people have about coaching junior hockey?
Like I said earlier, I think they think it's just 3 hours at the rink and then you get to go home and drink beers all day.
Yeah,
Like I think like anything else, it's gonna be again what you put into it is what you're gonna get out of it. And like I'm not trying to make myself sound glamorous by any means. But like I literally I work from basically the time I get up to the time I go to bed, and um, I wouldn't have it any other way. But like I think a lot of people just assume that winning is just a byproduct of having good players, whereas like a lot of people don't understand how much time that we spend on culture and like helping the players grow on an interpersonal level, grow their character, grow their moral values. Like when you invest in that side, like the wins will eventually take care of themselves.
for sure.
Um, like the at Maine's a great example. Like if you look at their team this year, they have one AHL draft pick as opposed to Boston College, who has about 12 to 15.
Mhm.
And Maine just won the Hockey East. And so, like, if you watch them play, they believe in each other. They fight through adversity. They don't fluctuate very much with the highs and lows. They just shift after shift. It's the same type of performance. And like understanding that on the outside, like people always like if you look at Penticton specifically or Maine back in the day, like they won a lot. So everybody just assumes that's just a oh yeah, Penticton won. What do you do?
Yeah.
No, like we work hard for a reason. We are who we are for a reason. Like there's a standard here. So
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your role or the industry? Anything we haven't covered?
um I think if you genuinely want to be a coach or any type of administrator or a business side in sports specifically, don't be afraid to take the lowest role possible at the better organizations. Like, even if you have to start at the ground floor, like at the like if you wanted to go into pro hockey, even if you had to start in the ground floor of the Carolina Hurricanes, like go do the very best that you can do. See whose elbows you can bump into, see what relationships that you can build, see whose brain you could pick, like and work your way up because like the people that have fallen into organizations like that or the best of the best that kind of just fell into it without having climbed their way up are the ones that fail or the ones that get the flash in the pan success, then crash and burn right after.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start from the bottom and it's a cliche, but I've lived it and I can tell you like when you start at the bottom, you have a much greater appreciation for the view when you get up to the top. So like that would probably be the best advice I can give.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today. It's been great getting to catch back up with you, and I'm sure I'll actually keep in touch this time.
Absolutely, man. My phone's always on for you, my guy.
Well, I appreciate it.